Vinny, you mentioned players like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, like those will go high on people's boards, but who are some of the maybe underrated or sleeper picks that you are looking to target on your fantasy or others should look to draft in their fantasy leagues this year?
Yeah, I think you look a lot to the rookie running backs. There's a little bit of question mark exactly on some of their roles. Other than Ashton Genty, we know he's going to be a stud. He's going to be the lead back for the Raiders. But I think there's a little bit of value to be found in the other rookie running backs because there are some competition, so to speak. We have Omarion Hampton with Najee Harris. With the Chargers, Hampton is going pretty low relation to his talent and what he can do. And I think Najee Harris now having the issue with the firework and whatever's going to happen with his practice, this is going to give Omarion Hampton a big edge there right now in that battle. And then you have R.J. Harvey. I know they added J.K. Dobbins late in Denver, or you look at Caleb Johnson battling Jalen Warren in Pittsburgh. I think there's a lot of value to be had there because everyone's not sure about the roles of these backs, but everything would point to saying that these guys are going to have significant roles sooner, if not later. So, again, I think there's a lot of value to be had in the rookies, and then just looking for maybe people that are undervalued at quarterback. I think you look at the second-year guys that are not Jaden Daniels, right? I mean, Caleb Williams is probably going to outproduce where he's going in the late kind of 12 to 15 range at quarterback, and then you have Drake May, who's going to probably do some running to help his numbers here a little bit later. And then you look at J.J. McCarthy. Keep in mind, you've had really elite fantasy production from Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold in the system. So, and some people might be shied away by those rookie running backs and second-year quarterbacks, but look at the systems, look at the paths to production, and you'll find some value there.
Okay, so here's a very basic question, but I'm sure there's a lot of people listening that, are casual fantasy football players who want to win their league. Who's the quarterback you're drafting first overall?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question because I think it comes down to a couple guys. But I would say if you're going to go for consistency and a guy that's always in the top three, it's Josh Allen. You just have to keep taking this guy because, again, Jalen Hurts might be a little bit volatile with the rushing touchdowns. Josh Allen is just a producer, and he's just been that way since he's been in the league, and he has very little deviation from QB1. It's like QB2, QB3. These are some of his worst finishes, right, as a fantasy player. So if I'm looking at a quarterback, I know there's a lot of buzz about Jaden Daniels and what he can do, and Lamar Jackson was the better scorer last season. But in terms of like the guy that's probably going to, if he's not one, he's going to be two or three on the board, and you're not going to get that much off that. It's definitely Josh Allen for me.
Okay, fantasy aside, Josh Allen and the Bills have a high win total this year, 11.5, high expectations as they always do. Do you think that this version of the Bills can finally get over the hump and make it to a Super Bowl this year?
Well, I think we're not worried too much about their regular season prop number, I don't think, because the Dolphins, I think, are looking like maybe a regression team this year, so that takes one piece of competition out. We're not sure what we're going to get from the Jets and Justin Fields, and the Patriots are still rebuilding. So you feel really good about that regular season win total. For them, it's just figuring out the Chiefs or the Bengals or the Ravens at a certain point in the playoffs. And again, I don't know what it is, what they're missing there that can't just put them over the hump, but really it comes down to those games, and I think they have the potential to do that just as much as the other teams. They just don't seem to have that finishing play that they need. So I think what I would do is with the Bills, I think they need a little bit more in those key moments from their defense, and I think you'll see kind of the adjustment that have a little bit more, I think, impact plays from that defense that they need. I mean, they have pretty good rotation of pass rush, but they need some clutch moment plays to kind of change games, and they haven't had quite those in volume that they need to win those. So again, Josh Allen's going to be great. Everything's going to be great. We know it's going to come down to a few moments for the Bills, and we'll see. And maybe it's just a thing that they don't have with Sean McDermott, but we'll see. The biggest question is if it happens again, will they go in a different direction at coach with McDermott just not getting them over the hump?
Right. We're talking with Vinnie Iyer. He's an NFL and fantasy football writer for Sporting News, host on the Locked On Network for fantasy football, and also has won on Jeopardy, which is damn impressive. Vinnie, I wanted to ask you about, is there a player who has had a change of scenery, a change of quarterback, a change of coach, where maybe since some of the variables have changed, they could be due for a big upside? Because sometimes we see this. You know, guys get a new quarterback or a new offensive coordinator, and their numbers go through the roof. Is there somebody that kind of fits the bill for that category for you?
Yeah, two guys that stayed put that are going to benefit a lot are Williams in Chicago because, again, Caleb gets now Ben Johnson, and we know what kind of numbers the Lions have put up. And then the Patriots just getting Josh McDaniels back. So that's going to be big here for Drake May. So that just by two guys staying put. Now, a guy changing teams that could be effective, I think, is Justin Fields because now he doesn't have competition, right? There's no Russell Wilson, and he's in a good system. They bring over basically the Lions coaching staff to New York. So we know what the Lions have put up offensively. I think they'll play to his strengths. I know he's a lot different quarterback than Jared Goff than what they had in that Lions system before, but we know he's a running quarterback. They're going to embrace that part of his game, and he's got some weapons, right? I mean, Garrett Wilson just got his contract extension. Breece Hall is going to help a lot because you got to worry about him in the backfield as well as Fields. So I think Fields could have a really nice season overall. And again, we've seen him put up some numbers in Chicago. Last year was in flashes in Pittsburgh, but look, there's no competition. They didn't draft anybody there. They have Tyrod Taylor. I mean, he's going to keep the job and put up numbers, and you're probably going to get a top 8, top 10 fantasy guy the entire season.
Vinny, I know there is a lot more that goes into strategy for fantasy football than you could probably explain in the entire 3-hour show that we have here. But can you just give those that might be listening and are newer to fantasy football, like what is the best strategy through the first couple of rounds? Which type of players position-wise do they want to target?
Yeah, this goes back to what I said earlier. Now, I'm typically a guy, if you're not in a 2-quarterback or super flex league, quarterbacks are going to be a position I wait on because I can always find a guy later that I feel like is going to outplay where I'm drafting him and get that value. So I think what you want to do with the early rounds, don't, number one, put all your eggs in that basket because a lot of them are won in the 4th, 5th, 6th rounds where you find those value guys. But the other thing is you want to find guys that are just going to be reliable. You know what they're going to do, and you know that their upside is there. So you want a high floor, high ceiling type of quarterback if you're going to go early with Josh Allen, but then you know some high floor, high ceiling running backs like Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. If you have the fortune to get that high pick, go after those players. But it's really a bit nuanced, but you just want to make sure that you have in the first round, you're going to get a stud. Make sure it's someone that you're feeling good about and know that, again, they can explode for a big season and carry your team. Then second and third round, you want to kind of mix your portfolio like you would do. Just maybe get a guy with upside, maybe get a guy that has a little bit more floor-based production that you know what you're going to get. But, again, I typically just say look for someone who's going to outproduce where you're going to draft them and maybe go a few spots higher when you look in the end with their scoring versus their draft rank.
All right, so from a fantasy standpoint, who's number one on your big board for receivers?
Yeah, I think right now it's pretty close, but I'd say I like Jamar Chase over Justin Jefferson. Part of the reason is, again, I think this Bengals defense still could stink a little bit more. So I think the passing volume is going to be higher, and you got Joe Burrow, and then you don't have maybe the variable. I did like J.J. McCarthy, but it's still a variable, a change of quarterback where everything is kind of staying the same for Jamar Chase in that environment with Joe Burrow. So I do like Chase going one, and there's an argument, should Chase be the number 1 overall pick, even ahead of like Saquon Barkley and the other top running backs? I think that's a fair case just because, again, if you're in half or full point PPR where you're getting the points per reception, then he's going to have a lot more value with Jamar Chase probably going over 100 balls this year. So, again, it's pretty close, but usually I'll just say this, with Saquon, there's usually a regression when you have that type of volume. I'm not saying it's going to be a big regression, but typically we've seen when you get that much work over not just the regular season, but in the playoffs and the Super Bowl, you're going to have a little bit of scale back with your numbers. It's because it's hard to reproduce that. So, again, just keep in mind, but I think he's still the worthy, maybe top running back that you look at. Handful of guys that you could look at with him, with Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. But, again, just look at where you can get the best values for the players. And if you think someone's going to have a bigger season than what people are saying, experts, rankings, just go for it. If it's in your gut and you know based on your research that you're doing through all the experts, then just go for the person that you trust the most with your gut.